Ruby Hart stepped tentatively into the ornate tasting room, its grandeur a stark contrast to the worn, vintage floral dress she had chosen for the occasion. The gentle scuff of her low-heeled shoes barely made a sound against the polished marble floor, and she could feel the weight of the opulent room press down on her the moment she entered. Crystal chandeliers hung like glistening stars, and the rich aroma of oak-aged wines swirled in the air, mingling with the low hum of cultivated conversations. As Ruby clasped her leather notebook closer to her chest, she sensed the subtle shifts in the room's energy. Fellow guests, dressed impeccably in designer evening wear, threw sidelong glances her way, curt, dismissive appraisals that pricked her confidence like needles. Whispers floated through the air, remarks just audible enough for her to catch. Who let her in? Did she lose her way? The clink of delicate glasses punctuated their derision, their laughter a silvery echo of exclusion. Among the impeccably groomed crowd, Sebastian, the sommelier, locked eyes with her. His gaze was a cold, sardonic sweep from her scuffed shoes to her unadorned face, lingering on her creased dress with a faint sneer of disapproval. The fleeting exchange was enough to unsettle Ruby, her posture tense, a bead of resolve threading through her panic. Nearby, two well-heeled patrons made a sport of her discomfort, projecting loud jokes about her apparent mismatch to the venue. Their jest found an eager audience. Ruby inhaled deeply, schooling her expression to remain calm while a creeping blush marked her cheeks. This was not the start she had hoped for, yet, her resolve remained unyielding, steadied by an unnoticed spark of quiet dignity. As Ruby stood eating her humble unease, Sebastian advanced, his steps measured and deliberate, a practiced facade of grace underlining each movement. The room's chatter receded, intrigue sharpening the air as he halted before her, his smile a polished blade. "Excuse me," he intoned with a veneer of politeness tinged with frost, "can I help you? Are you lost? This is an exclusive event." Ruby met his gaze, willing her voice to remain steady. "No, I'm here for the wine tasting. I came to learn about the vintages," she said, telescoping her words into each breath, hoping they could forge a bridge between worlds. Sebastian's smile widened, but amusement, not friendliness, deepened its lines. His laugh was a breeze brushing over a sensitive cheek. "Here? To learn?" He gestured to the refined attendees, a silent declaration of her misalignment. "Our vintages may be a little complex for an untrained palate. Perhaps you meant to visit the wine bar in town?" The knot in Ruby's stomach tightened. "No, I'm certain I belong here." But Sebastian continued, his voice raised just a fraction to include onlookers, a calculated spectacle for the privileged. "Really, with that glass? You see, it's for whites, not reds. And one should truly swirl before sipping, for the sommelier's sake," he quipped, a puppet master pulling the strings of humiliation taut around her. Each condescending word pushed buttons among the crowd, curious faces leaning slightly closer, phones covertly raised, capturing the unfolding scene. The sneers and half-hidden smiles of her peers formed a fragile storm, threatening to unleash a deluge of shame. Someone audaciously tapped the rim of their glass, drawing laughter from across the room, mocking her ignorance. Ruby's heart accelerated, every second pulling her deeper into quicksand. She tried again, her voice a whispering tide against the shoreline of derision. "I've done my research. I've visited many vintners around the world." "Oh, how quaint," Sebastian responded, his voice syrupy and thick with sarcasm. "But you must understand, our patrons seek a certain sophistication. What drew your expert attention to such exclusivity?" Ruby searched for words, fragments of determination coalescing. "Every great journey starts with a single step. I'm eager to learn, no matter the venue." The retort stripped her defense bare, and a ripple of laughter circled the room like a viper striking from behind. A vibrant woman in sequin-clad elegance chuckled openly, "Poor dear, I think you've made a wrong turn into the land of the elite." Nadine laughed, fully indulging in the discomfort radiating off Ruby. "She must think discerning wines are like choosing which lace doily to buy," she added with a sharp laugh, her voice failing to mask its venom. Ruby's cheeks flamed as the room danced with cruel mirth, eager to consume the spectacle before them. She fought to maintain her composure, determined not to show the tears tugging at the edges of her resolve. Her heart, though battered by the evening's harsh beginnings, still whispered that she had a right to be there. Sebastian leaned in, his voice low enough for only her to hear this time, self-righteous triumph shining through. Perhaps, dear, you shouldn't waste your time, or ours. A true appreciation of fine wines is rather wasted, wouldn't you agree? Before Ruby could summon a response, a member of the staff materialized beside her, nudged there by Sebastian's unspoken command. Would you please accompany me? The attendant whispered, though he was visibly uncomfortable being used as a tool for such display. The laughter behind her swelled again, a victorious crescendo. Ruby's vision tunneled momentarily, the world around her a latticework of disdainful faces, their owners suffering adept at disguising it in a layer of polished civility. She was frozen, yet her pride flared. Her dignity, though dented, remained unyielding. She became acutely aware of every gaze fixed upon her, eyes devoid of recognition for what lay beneath the surface of appearances. Transcending the judgment, she managed a nod and followed the attendant, her heart strong in its silent defiance. As they reached the grand doorway, Ruby paused, offering one last glance at the room filled with those who'd cast her aside. Her absence would be a minor ripple in their sea of privilege, but she left a whisper of conviction trailing in her wake. The laughter faded behind her, but the echoes lingered, imprinting themselves on her resolve. Shoulders back, chin up, Ruby took calm, steady breaths as she stepped into the cool evening air, the dim glow of the manor illuminating her retreat. All eyes at her departure were final witnesses. None had spoken for her, yet she left with lessons far richer than any wine savored within those walls. Sebastian wiped away the remains of his triumphant smirk as the door closed behind Ruby, sealing her in the cold embrace of the night. The tasting resumed with practiced ease, the interruption soon forgotten by those eager to continue their indulgence in the world's finest wines. Sebastian, for his part, slipped back into his professional persona, orchestrating the event with precision. Yet, within him brewed a self-satisfaction that warmed him more than any vintage could. Behind the scenes, those familiar with Sebastian knew his penchant for maintaining exclusivity. His peers acknowledged silently but with unease how the sommelier wielded self-righteousness like a blade, carving out anyone who didn't fit his mold of elite connoisseurship. Tonight was no different. He believed he had shielded the event from perceived imperfection. Out in the garden, Ruby inhaled the scent of blooming night flowers, their fragrance a soothing balm against the jagged wounds of insult. She wandered along the manicured path, her thoughts a chaos of embarrassment and indignation. She had expected prejudice born of assumptions, but the harshness of reality had outstripped her imagination. Suppressing tears, she sat on a stone bench tucked beneath an oak tree, trying to find solace in her surroundings. The night was cooler here, a blanketing promise of resilience after each downturn. For a moment, she allowed herself the luxury of feeling small, but only for a moment. Compassionate staff buzzed about, clearing tables and extinguishing lanterns. One young server paused, glancing in Ruby's direction with a trace of something akin to sympathy. However, the line between server and guest remained unbreachable, much like the gap between Ruby and those inside. Suddenly, a striking figure emerged from the back entrance. Margaret, the event coordinator, elegant in her tailored suit, scanned the area, her eyes landing on Ruby. She advanced with purpose, clutching an envelope that glinted slightly in the dim garden lighting. "Miss Hart?" Margaret said, her voice soothing yet firm. Ruby rose, brushing leaves from her dress, guarding the ember of dignity she had preserved. "Yes," she met Margaret's gaze, searching for judgment but finding only professionalism. "Forgive the intrusion." "I've been asked to find you," Margaret explained, proffering the envelope as evidence of her search. "A matter concerning tonight's events has just come to my attention." Ruby accepted the envelope, her fingers tracing the quality paper, no hint at its contents visible. "What matter could that be?" Margaret's gaze contained layers of meaning. "It's best if I show you. Please, follow me." They navigated the soft-lit path back toward the manor's side entrance, pausing beneath a grand awning casting a protective shadow over their small world. The murmur of renewed laughter and clinking glasses grew louder, signaling that the opulent social order had resumed inside. As they reached the threshold, Ruby hesitated, peering into the room and feeling the weight of their previous disdain. "I'm not sure." Margaret turned to Ruby with a small but sincere smile, offering not sympathy, but hope. "Trust me. Things are not always as they first appear, Miss Hart. Tonight, your presence matters more than perhaps anyone might realize." Encouraged, Ruby stepped cautiously into the inviting glow, the once antagonistic ambience now underlined with intrigue. At that moment, the room's dynamics shifted. The main doors swung open with a graceful swiftness, admitting a figure whose presence commanded instant respect. The Vintner, a bearded maestro of the craft clad in simple elegance, entered, drawing gasps of recognition and deferential greetings. Murmurs cascaded through the air. This was the luminary behind the evening's crowning vintage, the genius of the grape. The Vintner paused in the center, surveying the audience with keen eyes, searching until they locked onto Ruby's, brightening with warmth. "Ruby," he exclaimed, his voice a resonant chord that silenced the room's conversations. The wash of astonishment was palpable. Patrons exchanged shocked glances, the evening's spectacle richer with potential. Ruby approached, drawn into the center of the gathering like a magnet, the very air sparking with anticipation. "Ruby," the Vintner continued, moving to meet her halfway, "I've been searching for you. What's this I hear about you leaving before relishing the wines, your wines?" Her surprise mirrored on Sebastian's face, now blanched of its earlier color. An incredulous buzz spread like wildfire. Patrons whispered, piecing together bits of a puzzle they knew had shifted greatly just now. I didn't mean to cause a scene," Ruby stammered, unsure where to begin explaining. "Nonsense," said the Vintner. "The credit for tonight's featured vintage is yours. Your innovation is what we've gathered to celebrate." Ruby felt the burn of gratitude unfurl within her, overcoming the tangled threads of resentment spun earlier. She breathed deeply, transforming both the night's harshness and latent expectations into something transformative. The room adjusted to its new reality, like a kaleidoscope slowly defining its patterns. A stunned, systemic recalibration occurred amid the fragmented conversations reigniting. The audience's eyes were on her, acknowledging without words the mistake burdening their earlier judgment. "I am humbled," Ruby said finally, her voice steady, conveying both a sense of grace and the quiet strength she'd found in tonight's crucible of judgment. Unwavering humility laced her magnetic reveal, leaving the room heavy with reflection and admiration. The Vintner nodded approvingly, a mentor's glow in his countenance as he surveyed the room, basking in the light of Ruby's unfolding revelation, a testament forged not in glass and gilded hues, but in resilience and an uncompromising dedication to her craft. As the crowd lingered, still processing the seismic shift before them, Ruby felt the sting of her earlier humiliation soften into insignificance. Here, beneath the chandeliers, acceptance wore the guise of newfound respect. For what she realized, under all that glint and spark of exclusivity, lay the simple truth. Her true essence had transcended any prejudice divide that even the finest sommelier couldn't contain. As Ruby stood beside the Vintner, the realization of her true role in the evening spread like wildfire through the room. Patrons who had once dismissed her with cursory glances now leaned in, eager to glean a deeper understanding of the woman suddenly at the heart of the soiree. A palpable shift in the room's energy ensued, displacing the earlier laughter with hushed speculation and earnest expressions. "Ladies and gentlemen," the venerable Vintner began, his voice imbued with the authority of someone who both commands and bestows respect. "Let me officially welcome Ruby Hart, the creator of tonight's celebrated vintage. Her innovation and dedication to the craft have resulted in a wine that transcends the ordinary, introducing a refreshing vitality to our palates." The murmurs turned to murmurs of approval, a collective veil of surprise lifting as the patrons recalibrated their perceptions. Sebastian, who had arrogantly undermined her presence, stood motionless, disbelief etching itself into his features. His eyes flickered between Ruby and the Vintner with a desperation for an escape that would not come. In the span of a heartbeat, the room's power dynamic had been rewritten. Guests who had derided her earlier now exchanged furious whispers, attempting to distance themselves from their prior disdain. Others, caught off guard by the evening's ultimate revelation, scrambled to offer sheepish smiles, half apologies folded into their renewed politeness. Ruby, composed and poised amid the cascade of reactions, decided to address the gathered assembly. The anticipation in the room thickened, each attendee holding their breath as she prepared to speak. "I'm truly honored to be here with all of you," Ruby began, her voice steady, only the slightest quaver revealing the lingering echo of her earlier tribulations. "As someone deeply passionate about wine, and its ability to bring people together, it's always been my goal to create something meaningful, something that reflects a shared journey of discovery." Her words landed softly, dissolving the veneer of elitism that had previously shrouded the evening. Genuine interest flickered in the patrons' eyes, cutting through their initial prejudice. "Some of you might wonder why my appearance tonight seems out of place. The truth is, I believe in the beauty of simplicity. Tonight's attire reflects who I am truly, a woman focused on the harvest, the process, not the pretense of appearance or luxury." Her declaration was met with contemplative nods, the stark contrast between her authenticity and the night's snobbish prelude an unspoken commendation. Ruby continued, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth, as she recounted her journey. She spoke of modest beginnings, where her love for the soil and the vine led her to far corners of the earth, collecting experiences that each enriched her knowledge and passion. With every word, the room seemed to lean closer, magnetized by the revelation of a perseverance that aligned vision with outcome, as someone who wove art into the tapestries of grape and beryl. Guests began to see Ruby not just as a vintner, but as an artist whose canvas was earth and all its unyielding challenges, tasked with crafting something memorable and vital. Her story finished with a light laugh. Clothing, after all, can only tell a piece of a story. Some were their journey inside, visible not in embroidery or silk, but in a tenacity and vision more complex than the grandest burgundy. The air was electric, the room swelled with admiration, viewers seeing within Ruby what they could not, the robust flavor of dedication, the depth of creativity poured from heart to glass. As her narrative concluded, respectful applause echoed through the expansive chamber. Each clap was both an apology for earlier judgments and an appreciation for the revelation of a hidden gem now shining brightly in their midst. Ruby's success told a greater tale than that woven by the delicate notes in her wine. Where her earlier humiliation aimed to defeat, it served instead to fortify her resolve, a resolve met now with shared respect and understanding. Sebastian, bearing witness to this transformation, found himself the subject of surreptitious glances, their meaning painfully clear. The crowd's earlier spirit of joyful exclusivity had become a mirror reflecting their hasty presumptions and misplaced reverence for appearance over substance. As Ruby basked in the unfolding admiration, the Vintner himself raised a glass, inviting all to join in toasting the evening's unlikely heroine. "To Ruby Hart," he declared, voice resonant with pride and admiration. "May we always be open to learning from our misconceptions, and to embracing greatness, whatever guise it takes." The assembly followed suit, raising their glasses in concert, the symphony of acclaim sweeping the room. Even Sebastian, appearing chastened, raised his hand, understanding too well the necessity of acknowledging what lay beyond his originally narrow purview. Ruby accepted their toast with gratitude and grace, wielding her newfound respect as a testament to the purity of her intentions. Around her, patrons mingled anew, whispering excitedly over their glasses about their collective epiphany, a triumph born of misunderstanding and ultimately ending in enlightenment. The grandeur of the wine tasting reclaimed an air of celebration, definitively altered and abundant with fresh perspective, a resonance of variables both serendipitous and treasured. With her vulnerability now a historic triumph, Ruby's presence solidified the evening into a defining moment marked by cultivated respect and understanding, a reminder that in every encounter, authenticity eclipses manufactured exclusivity. As the final toast to Ruby's accomplishments resonated around the room, a sense of celebration washed over the gathering, each clink of glasses symbolizing a blend of newfound understanding and appreciation. The warmth of shared respect brought an unexpected harmony to the evening, bonding those gathered under a banner of collective realization. Yet, not all shared equally in the celebration. Sebastian, having steeled himself for public discourse, bore the brunt of the glances that whispered of moral correction. His original satisfaction and humiliation had unwound into an uneasy introspection. Ruby's presence had altered the trajectory of the evening's narrative, replete with a grace that ignored prior indignities. Each moment she now interacted with patrons was a silent teaching, exuding strength without the need for superiority. She engaged curiously with each guest, satisfied not with penance but with sincere interest in their understanding of her journey. The shift in Sebastian was as visible as if he wore his emotions astride his shoulders, crestfallen beneath the weight of collective reproach. Throughout Ruby's storytelling, he had worn a fixed smile, every hidden barb of his earlier conduct coming to rest within his conscience with precise discomfort. The clamor of the celebration continued. However, once the Vintner announced that the guests were free to enjoy the evening with music and further tastings, the moment hung in the balance. Sebastian knew he had to act. He intercepted Ruby as she moved through the throng, her kind presence drawing both interest and conversation like a magnet, her laughter melding with the room's laughter. "Miss Hart," Sebastian began, voice faltering just perceptibly before gaining relief in crescendo, "I owe you an apology." Ruby turned to face Sebastian, the crowd instinctively giving them space, the air between them taut with unresolved tension and sincerity. Her eyes met his, bringing all their earlier interactions into immediate focus. "Yes, Sebastian," she replied softly, neither accusation nor bitterness coloring her tone. His earlier confidence in public act and speech departed under her scrutiny. "I deeply regret how I welcomed you earlier. My conduct was inexcusably short-sighted," he admitted, adjusting his posture to meet her gaze fully, vulnerable now. Ruby regarded him steadily. "Your assumptions about me, about anyone, can overshadow the truth beneath the surface. Tonight, you made me another face in an unappreciated crowd." "Yes," Sebastian agreed, his acknowledgement devoid of defense. "And I misjudged you greatly. It made me realize how often perception overrides kindness in this world." His confession bore weight. A shared recognition surrounded them as nearby patrons listened closely, their previous indifference now a softened backdrop. "Perception isn't always the enemy, Sebastian," Ruby countered gently. "It's when it blinds us to deeper truths, or prevents us from extending ourselves to understand, that it becomes limiting." Sebastian nodded, relieved by her willingness to engage meaningfully, a reprieve from the self-imposed censure of his actions. "I've learned this now, in no small part thanks to you." Their exchange sparked an internal shift for Sebastian, each word grounding him further in understanding, marking an opening path spread before him where humility might replace arrogance. Soon enough, guests gravitated back to their enjoyment, though the evening's illustrative lesson lingered in quiet acknowledgement, touching even those who had been mere spectators to its unfolding wisdom. Sebastian's evening took an unexpected but cathartic turn as hosts and patrons alike now regarded his position with thinly veiled critique. The management team, discreet but discerning, chose to intervene, marking Sebastian for later discourse about his role in sullying such a prestigious affair with questionable conduct. When the Vintner, who had keenly observed every nuance of the evening, joined Ruby, he offered his hand, a statement laden with both respect and solidarity. Together, they absorbed the transformed atmosphere, attendees offering subtle condolences for earlier transgressions, precious new insights brimming around them. As the evening wound softly toward its close, Ruby found herself at the epicenter of a changed landscape. What began as a fated gathering, rife with hasty assumptions, had transformed into an evening where empathy outweighed pride, and authenticity eclipsed false reverence. With one final glance, she took the warmth of their acceptance into her heart, her exit marked by quiet power but also the humility of knowing she had traversed beyond mere survival, embodied strength buoyed by an indomitable spirit. The manor's entrance greeted her beneath the glittering night sky, the stars whispering promises of future endeavors unmarred by such ignorance. Her presence indelibly marked the evening, the echoes of her standing testament to resilience. As she departed, there was no fanfare or need for public closure. The vineyard's path was her own and all too familiar. Her silence spoke of journeys yet to come, and seeds sown not just in soil, but in unsuspecting hearts newly opened. The wine tasting, the house and its guests enriched by her indelible mark, would forever bear testament to the quiet force from which authenticity and understanding might bloom. As Sebastian watched Ruby depart, he knew the lessons he must internalize extended beyond mere words. Within him, a fledgling resolve took root to rebuild not just his professional demeanor but a new chapter marked by empathy and acceptance, dedications offered upon the vintage tilts of the spirit guardian, a quiet thank you to the night champion that rewrote evening wine into an enduring legacy.